The Treasurer says people who lost homes in last year's Lismore flooding will be given the chance to rebuild away from flood-prone areas. Sky News political reporter Joel Philp has the details.
This new analysis shows that 68% of Australians, so almost 7 in 10 of us, live in an area that was subject to a natural disaster declaration last year, and that the loss of economic activity due to the floods last year was $5 billion, separate to the property damage that was caused. So that was worth a 1/4 percentage point of our GDP. Flooding was a driver of inflation last year, pushing food up, and the Treasury estimates that those floods we saw towards the end of last year, where they're likely to have flow-on effects to our hip pockets. Still in the months ahead, we could see a little bit of movement on inflation still on that front. Now, responding to these stats today, the Treasurer said that flood mitigation was an important part of shielding our economy in the future.
We want to make our economy more resilient, we want to make our budget more responsible, and a really important way to do both of those things is to make sure we do a much better job, not just responding to natural disasters, but doing what we can to mitigate them as well. Part of that is making sure that we're building in the right areas, and a big part of the support package that we've got for Lismore and the surrounding areas is to give people that choice when they're rebuilding about whether or not they rebuild in some of these particularly flood-prone areas.
So the Treasurer and the Emergency Minister are heading to Lismore today to check up on the rebuilds efforts that are occurring there, and also take part in a housing roundtable. Now, Lismore and its surrounds, when they were hit by that February-March 2022 floods, it has now been listed as the 4th worst natural disaster in the world last year. Another incredible statistic. Kevin Hogan, the Shadow Trades Minister, whose electorate actually encompasses Lismore, says that locals are still worried and scared about the future.
People right now in Lismore, and indeed the lower Richmond, places like Corrickey, Woodburn, Broadwater, Waddell, they don't feel safe right now, and we have to make sure they do, and I believe flood mitigation and spending money there is the answer.
And the Treasurer believes the biggest influences domestically on our economy in 2023 are likely to be rising interest rates and natural disasters.
We're taking you live to Lismore now, where Acting Prime Minister Jim Chalmers and Emergency Services Minister Murray Watt are speaking.
You may have seen the other day when we were in the Kimberley, we announced jointly with the Western Australian Government the first round of financial support, and that was emergency payments, financial hardship, accommodation payments and things like that. I'm very pleased today to be able to announce that we have now also activated the Australian Government Disaster Recovery Payment for the Derby-West Kimberley council area, and that takes in the town of Fitzroy Crossing, which has pretty much been the epicentre of those floods in the Kimberley. And those payments provide $1,000 for every eligible adult and $400 for every eligible child. And as I say, that's in addition to the funding that has already been announced across a number of different council areas in the Kimberley. So my closing message, I guess, is again, wherever and whenever people experience these natural disasters, the Albanese government will stand with people. We're there when the disasters happen. We're there well afterwards to make sure the recovery goes well, and we're never going to let people feel abandoned by their governments. We're all happy to take questions about anything.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Well, we're here at the Mountain Blue packing shed, and it suffered $2 million worth of damages during the flood. Yet the business is yet to see any money from the supply chain support program. What's taking that so long? I believe that applications haven't even closed yet.
So that program was announced jointly between us and the New South Wales government not too long before Christmas. And the purpose of that program is to get money into businesses that have been having trouble with their supply chains. Obviously, there's been a range of problems with supply chains in businesses in Australia over the last couple of years, COVID, Ukraine, and in these sorts of areas, floods as well. Those applications, my understanding is that they close in the next few days. And what we've always said is that financial support after these disasters comes in stages. So typically what we do initially is try to get money into individual homeowners' hands, and that's what we've done again today for Western Australia. And then we tend to move on to small business grants and primary producer grants, and I know that there have been many people in this region who've been able to take advantage of those. And as time goes on, we can look into the more in-depth issues like supply chains, like the home buybacks, and it's quite likely that there will be additional support announced for this region as time goes on and as the needs become clearer.
That is where we leave Emergency Services Minister Murray Watt speaking alongside Acting Prime Minister Jim Chalmers there in Lismore, announcing more funding assistance for flood victims.